Marks 25 years since one of the worst weather disasters in Oregon's history. The flood of 1996 killed 8 people and caused over $65 million in damage. Fox 12's Brian McMillan is live with a look back at that flood and the people who worked the front lines. Brian?
Yeah, we're out here along the beautiful and very calm Willamette River here on this fine evening. This setup here for the flood of 1996 was kind of a perfect scenario for a weather disaster. I want to compare it here to this very wet January that we just had. Take a look at this here. We had over 7 inches of rain in January for the entire month of January. Now picture this, in just 4 days, we had over 7 inches of rain here around the Portland metro area just in 4 days back there in February 1996. And then you go down to the Central Valley. Well, a lot of spots had over 7 inches. In fact, Salem had over 8. Then you go up into the higher elevations of the Coast Range and the Cascades. Many areas there had over 15 inches. In fact, there were a couple spots that had over 20 inches of rain just over the course of 4 days. It's no mystery to why this will be a very memorable event for those who worked and lived through it.
I was the stormwater supervisor for Public Works.
Sam Kidd is enjoying his retirement after 40 years with Salem Public Works, but he'll never forget that week in February 25 years ago.
The 4th or 5th, it started raining, and it didn't stop until the 9th, and so it was several days of just constant rain.
Now we know it as the flood of 1996. A huge amount of snow in January was followed by freezing rain in early February. Then, the second week of February, an atmospheric river, also called a Pineapple Express, dumped a massive amount of rain in just 4 days. Portland had 7 inches of rain. Salem had more than 8. The snow melted high above, and there was no stopping the rising rivers. Entire neighborhoods were evacuated.
There comes a point where there's so much water, there's nothing you can do, and so and then it's just a matter of being there so people can cry on your shoulder and complain, but that's it. You can't push that water anywhere.
While working, trying to save other people's homes, Sam got a call from his wife. His neighborhood was being evacuated too.
And my wife somehow ended up getting a U-Haul truck, and so by the time I got home, she was loading valuables into this U-Haul truck, and we loaded what we could, and then we got into this mass traffic jam because there wasn't any traffic control getting out of town.
In Portland, that same week, Julie Ammon was hard at work.
25 years ago, I was working as a college student for the Corps of Engineers.
She was an intern at the Reservoir Control Center. Now, 25 years later, she's the chief, and she says this flood had a huge impact on her career.
I remember it being devastating. I also remember having a sense of pride to be part of an agency that I knew was trying to mitigate this and make it better.
The Corps worked with reservoirs in Canada, Idaho, and Montana to hold back water. At its peak, the Willamette River raged all the way up to the walkway.
So the river was running really, really high and muddy and thick, wood debris in it. And if you look at that gauge over there, it measures where the water level is. 18 feet is flood stage here, and we peaked on the 9th at 28.6 feet.
And then on the 9th of February, it stopped.
When it quit suddenly, and then the sky was blue, the day was nice, and we would try to drive through town, and there's just massive amounts of water still just standing there because it took the river a long time to go down.
One more day of rain could have made this disaster so much worse. It took 3 days for the Willamette River to drop below flood stage.
I have no doubt that we will see flooding again someday, and hopefully we're ready.
Yeah, I know a lot of you who have lived here for a long time remember this flood very, very well. One of the many wild stories here from this flood, the Detroit Reservoir rose 100 feet, 100 feet in just those 4 days. And many that work in the water industry around here learned a lot of lessons from this. And since 1996, they have been monitoring our local rivers and making investments in the monitoring of our local creeks and rivers here a lot more. Also putting more weather stations up there in the higher elevations to monitor when those big rains come. Reporting live in Portland tonight, Brian McMillan, Fox 12 Oregon.